Hey there, good people, and welcome back to the DNP podcast. I'm your host, Deb Wagbeder, and I'm ready for another week of NFL action. This episode will discuss the Baltimore Ravens and their path to the playoffs. Also, the Minnesota Vikings. Is this a lost season for them already? And as I'll do every week, picks for 6 games of the weekend against the spread in our Pick 6. This pod is available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, so like, rate, subscribe, and all that good stuff so you can stay up to date with each upload. The Baltimore Ravens were able to pull off their first win without Lamar Jackson when they beat the Chicago Bears by a score of 30-16 to get their record up to 2-5, leaving hope that they can crawl themselves back into the playoff picture. So, can they? I certainly believe so, considering they were my Super Bowl pick at the preseason. So I am obviously holding out hope that these guys can prove me right. And the beating the Chicago Bears definitely the first step in doing so. Especially when you look at their division and you look at the fact that the Steelers lost again, the Bengals lost to the Jets after having a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. So that's that's not the mark of a serious team. And the Browns, simply the Browns. There's nothing else I really need to say about them, to be honest. At least in the way they're currently formatted. I mean, Myles Garrett can have 5 sacks and they can still lose by 20. So. That's all you need to know about them. So when you look at the division standings and you look at the Steelers, who are top at 4-3, the Bengals above them at 3-5, and then the Ravens took 2-5, pardon me, and you say, okay, the Ravens are a half game behind the Bengals, and they're 2 games behind the Steelers, and they still have to play each of them twice. So you're looking at it and say the Ravens are more or less, despite the 2-5 start, in control of their own destiny because they still have the 2 games against the teams above them in their schedule, and they themselves have the opportunity to get the wins when they need to. Because if you look at the way their schedule looks up and the way their schedule has lined up so far, looking at and their losses are to teams like the Lions, the Chiefs, the hold on, let me just pull up their record real quick. But they've had to face some tough competition. The Rams, like, and you're saying, okay, the Bills, like that's a that's a tough schedule. Those are some of the top teams in the league and with the top records, in fact, as well. So when you look at who they have now in the upcoming weeks, like the next team they face with a winning record is the Steelers in week 13. And I'll be deadly honest with you, I don't expect the Steelers to still have a winning record by the time we get to that point. Because if you look at, they have the Colts this weekend, and they still have like the Lions and so on and so forth. So the Ravens, sorry, have a real opportunity here to pick themselves back up and make that run here. And you're looking at the next 5, and they have the Dolphins on Thursday night. They have the Vikings, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals. If they're the Ravens that we expect them to be, and if Lamar is able to be back for, let's say, even the Vikings game, you say that the short week against Miami is too quick, then okay, you're looking at it, and they can make a real run into that, you know, Steelers game at home in week 13 and the Bengals after that, and a tough end to the schedule with the Patriots, the Packers, and then the Acrisure Stadium away game against the Steelers in week 18, which can easily be for all the marbles when we get to that point in terms of the AFC North Championship. So you look at what the Ravens have to deal with and what their path is and the competition that they're facing. Like, they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to run the table to make their way into the playoffs and be heck like an 8-9 um champion of the division. And I'm sorry, if you're looking at your schedule and let's say you're the let's see who would be the best wild card, like a Broncos or a Chargers or a the Patriots or the Bills, right? And you're saying you have to go on the road to face Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. You still back yourself, sure, but you wouldn't say we have we're just gonna wipe the floor with this, non-factor. You're saying, damn, they've got a two-time MVP on the other side of the ball. We've got to make sure that we're on job. This is probably one of the toughest oppositions we could have faced in this sort of playoff scenario. So I still have full confidence that the Ravens can make a run into the playoffs. Well, I'll be honest, I'll put my mark here. They will be in the playoffs. Whether they make that run to the Super Bowl is very much a question mark because you're seeing the other AFC contenders in, heck, even the Colts have become a real serious player for it. The um, Bills, Chiefs, usual suspects. The Broncos and the Chargers have maintained their form from last season, and yeah, it's a tough sell in terms of making the Super Bowl, and is unfortunate when you start a podcast and you're like, oh, okay, let me make my predictions and feel good about myself, and it turns out that one side of it is starting 2-5 and looks absolutely hopeless from the start of the season. But looking at the way the schedule lines up for them now, again, Dolphins away, Vikings away, Browns away, Jets home, Bengals home. That is very possibly getting themselves to 7-5 with full control of two Steelers games left and another Bengals games to go. And okay, yeah, we are in the driver's seat and we are back to where we're supposed to be, where we thought we would be at the start of the season. And you look at it and you're saying, okay, why has or how have the Ravens managed to get themselves in the position where they feel good about themselves? Obviously, 2-5 is not a great record, but what's changed with them? And honestly, it's still a two-game sample size, but it has been a drastic improvement against two teams with running records in the Rams and the Bears in terms of the defensive changes. Because you look at the first 5 games in relation to the last two, again, small sample size, but still drastic improvements with regards to the points allowed. First 5 games, 35.4 points per game. The past two, you've given up 16, you've given up 20. Yep, 16.5 points per game. That's a good level in terms of not being top tier, not being shut out dominant, but not being as leaky as a cup with a hole at the bottom or just a couple holes in the side. Like there is still a hole, but it's not two dot 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 here. It's just one. Still letting some through, but not letting it 90% through. Like you are at least maintaining some level of stability and bend don't breakness, which with an offense that has a Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, get the ball to Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, then if you can put the points on the board, your defense doesn't have to be the 85 Bears to be able to be a competitor. And we look at the rushing yards as well. It's gone from 146.4 per game to 85 in these past two. That's when you say, okay, again, they're not getting gashed. And it's not like they faced bad run offenses. I mean, Kyron Williams, yeah, he's having a slight downturn from where he's usually been, but he's still one of the better running backs in the league. And then the Bears have been one of the most efficient run teams of all time in the past, this season. So you're looking at that and saying, okay, you're able to keep them at bay to an extent. And you say, okay, again, doesn't have to be glamorous, doesn't have to be complete shutdown, but if we can maintain a certain level, a certain standard that is middle of the pack when you look at the general league and where they position themselves there. It's like, okay, our offense can carry the load to where we can make ourselves somewhat of a factor when it comes to making themselves in the playoffs, which beforehand, that defense could not get you anywhere. It gets you to 1-5. It gets you to 1-4, and it keeps you in the top 10, 15 of the draft position, which when you're a team that's got an MVP at quarterback and has the investment that they've made so far in their organization, it's like that's not where they expect to be. It's not where they position themselves to be with regards with a timeline of being a contender for the Super Bowl. So I definitely would say that the defensive improvement that the Ravens have been able to make has definitely put them in a position where I can feel confident again that they can at least make themselves into the playoffs. And when you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. We've seen the 9-7 Giants go on and win the Super Bowl. We've seen a wild card Green Bay Packers run the table and absolutely dominate their way through to a Super Bowl championship. So again, it's still on the ropes with regards to a Super Bowl prediction, but I can definitely plant the flag going into Week 9 that despite being 2-5, that the Baltimore Ravens will definitely be playing meaningful games in January. Let's take ourselves back to last Thursday night when the Minnesota Vikings made the road trip to LA to face the Chargers and got a sound 37-10 beating. Since then, quarterback Carson Wentz has been put on season-ending IR that came out that he tore his labrum in the London game against the Browns 3 weeks ago. So fair play to Carson Wentz playing through that for a couple more games just to, I don't know, keep JJ McCarthy on the bench. It feels like a soft benching, or whether, he was, obviously JJ wasn't ready and he didn't want to put Max Brosber in there, and yeah, he just kept playing through it. So, whatever you want to say about Carson Wentz as a football player, which as a quarterback, which hasn't been able to put up stellar numbers or stellar performances consistently over the past couple of years, you can't deny the guy's toughness. That is a tough SOB if there was ever a definition in dictionary for it, which I'm sure there is. But if they had to do it visually, then it'd be Carson Wentz. Anyway, that leaves JJ McCarthy, Max Brosmer, and recently signed John Wolford to the practice squad as the team's quarterbacks for the rest of the season, barring any trades before the November 4 deadline. So this is again one of those who start a podcast that's make a pick that's going to that you believe in, that you feel good about, that's maybe against the grain and could come back to make you look really smart, but is instead made me look like, well, I'm just starting out. But yeah, I did pick the Minnesota Vikings as my NFC North champion, and it looks like they're going to go the other way and be the bottom of the division because the Bears are the good, Lions and Packers, who I did pick to make the playoffs, so not a complete, off the rails pick in terms of my preseason predictions, but the Vikings definitely have lowered the expectations or underperformed the expectations that certainly I had for them, based on what they did in the preseason. Because I thought, because they really invested in the line of scrimmage play on both sides of the ball. Look at giving Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen big deals, and then Will Frias and Ryan Kelly and the interior O line. I thought, okay, they'll be able to run the ball really well because they also brought in Jordan Mason. They had Aaron Jones, so you think, okay, they're able to supplement JJ McCarthy, who was obviously the preseason starter, with weapons outside of him, so where he didn't have to set the world alight for this team to win games. And if anything, during JJ McCarthy's time in there, he's had one good quarter, which won them the game against Chicago in Week 1 on that Monday Night Football. But then that Week 2 game happens against the Falcons on Sunday night, and that he looks completely out of place, and it was overwhelming for him. And he hasn't played since. Looks like he'll play this weekend against the Lions, which is quite the tough game to come back for on the road, I do believe. Just confirm. Yep, on the road. But so far, he hasn't been able to put a consistent 4 quarters or even 2 quarters back to back of decent level play. So there is that question mark of, okay, is the Viking season done here? Can they make themselves, because the NFC is quite congested in that lower to mid tier range. Obviously, the top you have the Eagles, the Rams, the Buccaneers. What else is there? The Niners. The Niners have 5 wins. The Seahawks have 5 wins. So in that sort of those top five seem pretty set, but below that you have quite a hodgepodge of teams there that could, if things go their way, make a run. But that's, you're leaving 2 spots for like 7, 8 teams. So there's you're gonna have to do really well from your mind to make a run there. And you look at what the Vikings in terms of guys run game both sides of the ball and just being a good offense, right? That they haven't been. Like last season, you're looking at a team with 14 wins with Sam Darnold at the helm, and you're like, okay, this is the defense that's Brian Flores was getting head coaching nods, and it's like, okay, they're fierce, they'll blitz you all the time, they'll get at you, and they'll force turnovers, and then on offense, they've got the explosiveness with Jefferson on one side, Addison on the other, Donald being able to make the right reads and playing top 10 level football. Whether you thought it was a top 10 quarterback was obviously a question, considering the fact that he had bad spells of the Jets obviously coming in and then the Panthers after that, and then he was a 49ers backup. You're questioning, okay, can Sam Darnold really do this? Is this real? Is this a plug and play system where anyone can step in? Nick Mullins can get numbers, like that sort of conversation of, is this just Kevin O'Connell being a mastermind and making Sam Darnold look good, or is this Sam Darnold putting himself in a situation where he's the reason this offense is doing well? And I think the first 7 games of the Viking season so far gives you the indication that, okay, Sam Darnold has gone up a level in regards to where he was early in his career. And it's not just, okay, Carson Wentz can step in and make this team an NFC juggernaut. Like JJ McCarthy as a rookie essentially a rookie because he didn't play any last year. He got injured throughout last year. So you're saying he can just step in his first NFL reps and make the Vikings as good as they were last year. And it's fair to say that that's not the case because Carson Wentz has been low to middle tier. JJ McCarthy had one good tier quarter and otherwise has been low ranking in terms of quarterbacks in the league with regards to his level of play. So you do ask the question of whether the Vikings even made the right decision because not only was Darnold in the quarterback room last year, they also had Daniel Jones, and we're seeing what he's doing with the Indianapolis Colts in the AFC. Like they're the best record in the league at 7-1, and going into the Steelers game this weekend, you'd probably give them a good idea to go 8-1, and then the Falcons game in Germany, which I'll be at. Can't wait. But there's a very good chance they're 9-1. They look like off the back of obviously Jonathan Taylor, but Daniel Jones being the quarterback, being able to make real like high level throws, and you're like, okay, so you had him in the building, Daniel Jones. You obviously had Darnold in the building and leading you to 14 wins and uh, wild card playoff berth, but still 14 wins out of 17, 14-3 is in most years would get you the 1 seed and get you the bye in the playoffs. So you're like, you had him in the building, had him in the building. Obviously, you did spend the top 10 pick on JJ McCarthy, but you've got the top 10 quarterback in your building. You've got this guy who is playing lights out stuff, and heck, you've even got a backup who you can't predict Daniel Jones. So that's one where you probably don't blame the Vikings for that because you didn't bring him in to start to begin with, and you've again spent the top 10 pick on JJ McCarthy. But you have this guy who worked in your system, got you to 14 wins, was throwing for well over 4,000 yards, and again, I think leading or top 3 in touchdowns last year. Why would you move off that, or is it not too risky to move off that and go with the essential rookie in that scenario? And I guess obviously you're making this not for 1 year, you're making this for the years in advance of JJ's whole career, and the question does come in of, at least for this year, was it the right move? And clearly, I think it's fair to say that this year is a bit of a write-off at the quarterback position, whether JJ McCarthy can play to Sam Darnold levels. But their hope is, and I guess not my hope because I'm not a Vikings fan, and they probably will look to bring in a veteran because if you're looking at a quarterback room of McCarthy, Brosman, and Wolford, there aren't many NFL reps in that quarterback room. So if you want to still have any sort of chance in the playoff picture, because you're looking at the Viking schedule here, and they've got Lions away this weekend, then it's Ravens at home, who will most likely have Lamar back. Bears at home, divisional opponent, they'll want their get back. Packers away, the current one seed, didn't even mention them. So that is actually one spot for a whole host of teams, the NFC. Seahawks away, Commanders at home, Cowboys, Giants, Lions, Packers. Like it doesn't, you don't read too many wins on paper, at least on that schedule. So if you're looking at a situation where you're 24th in rush yards allowed and 26th in rush yards on the offensive side of the ball, it's like, okay, kind of the lifeblood of being able to run an offense, and especially for what is an essential rookie quarterback playing his third start against the Lions at Ford Field in a divisional game, you're not really helping the matter for a guy who very much needs the help. And it's clear to say that on the defensive side of the ball, Cashman and Van Ginkel injuries have hurt them. But you look around the league, everyone gets injuries to important players. You look at the Niners, who are 5-3, and they're losing Bosa, Warner, and their $50 million quarterback Brock Purdy hasn't been able to make more than 2-3 starts in the season. So you look those as reasons you're not performing as well as peak, but it shouldn't bring you down to such a level where your season is more likely than not done. From a playoff perspective, obviously you want to hope that JJ McCarthy does develop and you see signs that make you confident going into next season. But yeah, from the Vikings perspective, you look at what decisions they've made in the off season. It looks like for this year they haven't worked, but for their hope is the case that JJ McCarthy will be the franchise guy for the year to come, which the 7-year gap between him and Darnold would allow for more years of quarterback play from JJ McCarthy. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see whether that's the right decision for their future. All right, all right, all right. It's time for everyone's favorite part of the week and mine. It's time for the pick six. Yep, the pick six, right? Choose 6 games over the weekend against a spread and see how I do over the course of the season. Now, last week was not so good. Yeah, I was 6-2-4. Makes the season total 19-28 on the season. I don't know what percentage winning that is. I haven't calculated it, but I'd rather not. So I'll just keep it at that. You want to do it at home, be my guest. But yeah, I'll just look ahead. Still 0-0, still 0-0. We'll be positive from here on out in the season. That's my promise to you behind the screen. You out there watching this, over 500 from here on out. Okay, so to move forward, we have to improve on what we did in the past. And last week, first up, Niners +1.5 at the Texans. They just got beat. Saw the line and thought, why are the Niners underdogs in this one? They soundly won on Sunday Night Football. They're 5-2. Doesn't matter whether it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy. The Niners are one of the better teams in the league, and the Texans had been pretty poor up to that point, but they weren't poor on Sunday, and they were well worth their win in that one. So, hold my hands up, admit defeat there. Bengals -6.5 versus the Jets looked really good for most of that game. 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden, Breece Hall's throwing a touchdown pass, and the Jets win the game. So, yeah, first win of the season for them. Congratulations, Aaron Glenn. Get your job secure for another year, hopefully. Get yourself on that real Detroit Lions with Dan Campbell trajectory of just being, for lack of a better word, crap for the first season, but then moving forward and get setting that culture for the years to come. So give credit where it's due. The Bengals, that is, as I said in the Ravens section earlier, that I just don't see them as a serious contender. They'll be a light show with regards to Joe Flacco getting that ball to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase having Chase Brown in the backfield, but no, they're not going to win many more games this season and be in the playoffs. So again, Ravens gonna make the playoffs. Next one, a dub. Thank goodness. Bills -7 at the Panthers. Guys, it's the MVP. Even though it wasn't even the MVP that won the game for them, it was James Cook gashing them for 200 plus yards. So Bills are a good team coming off their bye. They put the flag down for the Chiefs game they've got this weekend, and yeah, they put a stumping on Carolina. So fair play to Buffalo. Thanks for keeping me somewhat above water for the season standings. Um, Next one, Bears +6.5 at the Ravens. Boy, I thought because I made this pick with Lamar Jackson in mind, and when Tyler Huntley came in, I was like, yes, win on the board, guaranteed. Surely the Bears within a touchdown here. No, they were beat by 14. So we move on. Cowboys +3.5 at the Broncos. The offense got shut down with all due respect, and the Broncos were able to put points up. I thought the Cowboys would be able to do the same and keep within that field goal. They simply weren't able to do so. So take the loss there. And then Chiefs -10.5 at the Commanders. Big line, but big teams cover big lines. And -10.5, 28-7 victory. 7-7 going into the half, so it looked a bit shaky, but the Chiefs are the Chiefs, so they should um, cover against the backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota. So that's last week. On to this week. On to better days. 0-0 from here on out. 6-0 week incoming. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. First up, Chargers -9 at the Titans. I don't really have much reasoning for this other than the Titans suck. I don't see any. I don't think I need any more reasoning. I don't think that -9, like the Chargers are a team that's looking to make a name for themselves in the playoff race, coming off the Thursday night football rest of 10 days extra, or 10 days, which is a couple of days extra, sort of a mini bye that everyone considers. So, like, even if it is in Nashville, I just don't. I think the Titans are a lifeless team right at the minute. Obviously, with an interim coach Mike McCoy, there's nothing to take from the Titans for this season, and there's a question of whether they'll even finish with the worst record, probably get back-to-back #1 overall picks, because heck, the Jets might see themselves in fine form. They're going into a bye now, so at least all eyes are on the Titans in regards to being the worst team in the leagues. And yeah, -9. I think if you're someone who gambles money in the NFL, any opportunity you can to bet against the Titans, do it, because it's it's good money. Anyway, not this isn't a gambling advice show, so you make your own decisions with regards to that. I'll make my decisions with regards to mine. Anyway, next up, Sunday Night Football, Seahawks -3 at Commanders. Going against the Commanders again because I don't even know about Jaden Daniels and what his status is. So if it's another Mario game, I feel even more confident about this. But regardless, Seahawks defense is top tier. The Seahawks offense is top five as well. They're coming off the bye week. Sam Darnold, JSN still leading the league despite the bye. Just think, JSN still leading yards off the bye. So Seahawks I feel good taking them. I feel good that fading the Commanders again, because I feel like they're another team where their season is on the ropes, and with a Seahawks team that feels good about themselves, currently the leaders in the NFC West, maintaining that sort of stronghold. I feel real good about the Seahawks being able to cover the three there. Next up, speaking of the Bears, speaking of the Bengals, Bears -2.5 at Cincinnati. Why? Well, historically or during the season, their run game's been great. and the Bengals defense hasn't really shown much that they've turned the corner. Obviously, concede 30 plus to Steelers, concede 30 plus to the Jets, and obviously other performances they've had over the season. I just don't think the Cincinnati Bengals are a team that I can put a hat on to say that they'll stay within. I think Ben Johnson can play like a game game control. Yeah, time control. Keep the ball to yourselves. Keep the high-powered Jamar and Flacco and Higgins and Brown offense off the field to the point where Caleb can just again read the script, do what he needs to do, and yeah, win by over the field goal. It's a weird line, but I feel good about the line, so I will take it. Speaking of lines, with regards to the betting odds, I'm going to go with Texans minus 1.5 versus the Broncos. What? The Broncos did really well. They put up points like nothing. Look at the Giants game. Look at the Cowboys game. How do you see it? Well, one, the Texans have one of the best, if not the best, defense in the league when it comes to points allowed and how much they give up in terms of yards and that much in the other. But also, it's similar to last week when it regards to why they favored against the Niners. And now I'm looking at this game, I'm like, minus 1.5. Why are they favored against the Broncos? It's a weird line. So last week I was on the wrong side of it in regards to thinking that they're ridiculous. Why would they make the Texans favorite? So this one I'm like, you know what? You made the Texans favorites. I'll back it this time. I trust you to keep that one in check. So yeah, Texans minus 1.5. Nothing more than, a hunch and the defense, but mostly the hunch.
Don't mind that slight technical difficulty there. Next up, Colts -3 at the Steelers. Why? The Colts maintain themselves as the most efficient offense in the league. And if you look at what the points Steelers have given up this year, first up, they conceded 32 to the Jets, who after that showed that they are not a consistent offense, even whatever you say about last week, that this is the most expensive defense in the league. And they conceded 32 to the Jets, 31 to the Seahawks, 33 to the Bengals, 35 to the Packers. It's just like, this is not a consistently well-positioned, good level playing the Steelers team that despite their home record as well, like they haven't exactly been the most, you imagine back in the day going to Heinz Field and you think, oh yeah, this is going to be a tough one. You don't feel that this year. And you don't feel that the Steelers are the Steelers, or the standard is a standard to say that they haven't been in that pace. And the Colts, again, as a team this year, have to be taken seriously, at least in the regular season. Whether you look at the playoffs and see them being able to have the 1 seed and beating teams like the Chiefs and the Bills when it counts at that level. But when it comes to Week 9 of the NFL season, do I think they can cover the field goals against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Absolutely. And I'll feel good about making that pick in that regard. And last up, pick 6, number 6, Chiefs minus 1.5 at the Bills. I just think the way their offense has played since Rice and Worthy's comeback has made them a very ferocious and difficult outfit to play against. And whether the Bills' defense can, stop them and keep them at bay to the extent, like, since they've had Rice and Worthy back, they haven't scored less than 28. Do I think the Chiefs' defense can keep the Bills at bay to 28? I think so. I think the Chiefs get the win this weekend and, in a position where they're in, where they need the wins in the regular season, where you may not have seen that to be the case last year, where they essentially run away with the AFC West. They're far from doing that this year, and they need to stack the wins this season more than they have in years past, to where I think this is a game they earmark and make sure they get the dub in it over a Buffalo Bills team that, despite what was a very dominating performance last week, there have been inconsistencies. So I do see the Chiefs coming away with the win there. So that's my pick 6. Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. Do you agree? Still, let me know in the comments. That'd be great. And that's the podcast for this week. That's episode 12. Okay, here we are. Keep on moving. The DNP train keeps pushing on. So, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, like, rate, all that good stuff, so you can stay up to date with each upload. Bye bye.